situation now where there's sort of like rolling reports of how crass and really incapable of functioning like an adult Donald Trump has been in regards to calling the families of military personnel who have been killed.
Who'd have thunk it?
And apparently, have you heard this story about he supposedly spoke to the father of one military personnel who I think died in Afghanistan, and offered the guy $25,000. Said, "I'm going to write you a check for $25,000, and I'll have people in the White House set up a GoFundMe page for you." And apparently the father was psyched because I think he might have expenses or whatnot, but 3 or 4 weeks later there's no check.
Nope. No,
there's no GoFundMe.
I put it in the mail on Saturday.
And then the White House announces, "We've put it in. It's in the mail.
It's literally in the mail. It's in the mail. It's right there." There's something weird. It's like all of my contractors, my lawyers, people who have people die in their film, they just don't get my mail.
Guys, stop doing postage on the weekends.
This is what I'm talking about. We need to privatize the post office.
Yeah.
The post office is not working.
You know that's literally what the upshot of the story is going to be, right?
Yeah. We need to privatize the post office because I keep putting checks in the mail and they get lost. And I don't know what to do.
There's literally been millions of dollars that have not been given to charity because of the failing public post office.
And then we have the situation where he calls the mother or the grandmother of the mother of a special ops guy who died in Niger.
Yeah,
who was killed.
Yeah. Yesterday.
And what's amazing to me is, I just caught a little bit of this on the news. There's not been, as far as I can tell, and to be fair, I haven't watched that much, but as far as I can tell, there has not been. I watched like maybe an hour of this coverage over the course of 2 shows where it was all the story about how he is incapable of being a normal human being. And in that conversation with that mother where he said like he knew what he signed up for, it's not hard for me to imagine that was his sort of awkward way of saying like he was very brave to sign up for something where he knew there was such danger and this and that.
Yep.
But of course, Trump could also just respond like, instead of like doubling down, he could just say like, look, I think the mother misinterpreted me, but I've called her again to apologize because I want this to be about honoring the service person. Whatever. I mean, there's a lot of platitudes.
That was a very brave thing your dumb white husband did. All right, let me call back. Sorry.
But meanwhile, throughout all of this in the news, like, hey, wait a second. What are 4 special ops guys dying in Niger? I mean, this is not like...
No one's talking about that.
Like, is it a car crash? I mean, were they...
Boko
Haram. Where were they going? Where were they... Yeah, I mean, but why not? What's... We need more information about this.
I would imagine that it has to do with...
News?
I would imagine it has to do with Boko Haram. But, that's boring. Right.
I think there's a drone base, too.
And I think there is a drone... Yeah, I think you're right. Well, no, I thought it was in Mali. Anyway, the point... There is a tremendous amount of activity in that part of Africa that gets, like, quite literally no attention. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what better way to peg what we're up to in Niger than 4 U.S. servicemen die there, right? I mean, It seems like an easy news peg. Even if it's like a sideline to the fact that Donald Trump is a grotesque human being.
That's what I keep saying. Why don't they cover the real news? What are we doing in Niger?
Well, I agree with you, Sam, and I think it's also a perfect example of how Trump moves the conversation somewhere else and liberals follow him there.
Yeah.
Not just liberals, everybody.
Yes, but, liberals should know better. Like, they're not saying, what the fuck are we doing sending all these troops to die, intervening in various parts of the world? They're saying like, oh, Trump was a dick.
Right, and I don't even hold the media to account for not saying like, why are we doing this, or questioning, making a value judgment on it as much as like, here's the story behind this. Like these guys didn't die in Fort Dix in a car accident. Explain why
Although
they died.
black people are very bad drivers, and that's true. It's just science.
He knew what he signed up for, but none of us
but
do.
But here is the sort of like the rolling dilemma about this, is that on one hand, and again, I go back to, because I was having a conversation with someone about this last night. In 2002 and 2003, 2004, like the level of skepticism by the media of George W. Bush was less than zero. Less than zero. There was nothing the White House could put out that they would ever question. Now, everything the White House does is questioned, except for, of course, like, sort of like the substance. But at the very least, there's no, benefit of the doubt. And
I think they're actually very reassured by that stuff. Like, we're supposed to be conducting unsurveilled, military action in Niger. That's being presidential.
Right. But the short-term political benefit is a positive one. I worry about the long term, but this is all part of that same dynamic where, I worry that if Donald Trump gets reelected 5 years out, like the questions of what we're doing in Niger will be just completely, there will be no questioning that it will be, that we will revert, because when we were talking about why you want a Hillary Clinton as opposed to a Donald Trump in terms of building a left in this country, like a genuine left, it is a function of comparing, what happened to the left under George W. Bush. And I think the left is in a different place now than it was, is in a different place as of 2016 than it was in the year 2000. But, we're only a year into the Trump administration. Who knows what happens if it goes to, in terms of like, David Frum ends up being our regular Friday guest.
Don't perish the thought.
Well,
don't even joke like that. It's horrible. But that's a good example. I mean, actually, a thing like activities in Niger would be like one of the only areas. I mean, and people actually made that there's no difference argument, which was so, mind-bogglingly stupid, obviously. But there's no doubt that under Clinton, there would be stuff like this going on in Niger. And I would do probably like a 4-part series on my show about what was happening in Niger, and we would be covering it much more extensively under Hillary Clinton.
And the media would be all over why we are in Niger.
To some extent,
Benghazi
partially
too.
Because Hillary, and the Republicans would do Benghazi too. But Hillary wouldn't call up and be like, "Well, your husband was a big dumb donkey, you see.
Yeah,
that's why he got killed." Anyways, I got more stuff. I got some fundraising. I've got some literal direct emoluments clauses to abuse my husband. So, laters.
I'm going to send you a check for $25,000. However, the money is frozen in a bank account, and I just need you to send $2,000 to my attorney, who will then release the entire $25,000 back, maybe even $50,000 too. So
hold on 1 second. Let me get my husband on. We want to give you the money, but you first need to give us the rounding number to your savings and checking accounts. We have a friend. He's a prince in Nigeria. He's got a whole fund. We're going to release the whole thing, but we need $1,000 up front.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos